Hi, I'm DJ Ware. On this episode of the Cyber Gizmo, I'm going to do a part 2 on the TrueNAS scale. This time we'll go through the install. Now, I can't show this on hardware because I don't have the monitor in a position where I can capture it. But I'll show you it. I'll show you the install on a virtual machine, and then I'll transfer over to running on the browser, and I'll show you on hardware the rest of it. So bear with me, and let's get started. As you can see, I have set up a virtual machine. I'm not going to go through all the steps again, but I have 8 gig of memory. I have 4 cores, 2 of which are socket, 2 of which are cores. I'm using UEFI and I'm using Spice for the display. My machine type is Q35. And I have a CD-ROM that's the ISO that I'll need to boot from in order to install it. And then I have to have 3 drives in order to install this. Now, whatever you install to cannot be used as storage. So you don't need to make that huge, but yeah, I just made them all the same for today, and then we'll work on it later. So in the network, I did make it an E1000, and that's it. And then I created an EFI disk to boot from. So I think we're all good to go. So I'm going to go ahead and start this. There it goes. Okay. Just got to give it a chance. We'll open it up with the remote viewer. Yeah, we'll allow that. And I'll go ahead and make this a little bigger so you can see what's going on. Okay, so the first thing this is very similar to the TrueCore, the TrueNAS core, and in that instead of installing on FreeBSD, of course, this is installing on Linux. So we'll do an install upgrade. Now I could go to the shell if there was some drivers or something I needed to load ahead of time, or reboot or shut down the system. We're not quite ready to do that yet. So I'll go ahead and pick the first drive as to the one that I want to actually install the software on. You are not allowed to use a USB stick anymore. So I think I mentioned that in yesterday. So yeah, I'll mention it again. So yeah, it is installing on an NVMe, so we should be okay there. And we're waiting for it to extract and push the files out. So it's successful, and it's telling me to reboot and remove the installation media. So we'll do that. I'm going to go ahead and shut it down, and then I'll remove the media manually. So we'll come up here and edit this, and then I'll just point it to a physical CD-ROM and empty it. So we'll go ahead and restart this. Bring the console back up. This time it's telling me to boot into the system. I'll take you up to the point where we actually create the first storage pool, and then we'll move over to the live machine. Because I've already created the pool, and I don't need to do that again, I don't think. So right now it's going through the creation of everything it needs in order for the GUI to run. So yeah, all right. So we have a URL here that we can use. That's one. And of course, it's going to tell me this is a security risk. I'll give it advance. I'll accept the risk and continue. And then it should come up with, yeah, this is self-signed certificate. You do sign on with root, and then the password is the one you gave it when you did the install. And I don't want this, so we'll just say never. Okay. It gives you some information here about where to go for documentation, where to go for the community support. So yeah, if you're interested in that, you can save those links. They're on the main pages, so you can see that as well. Here you can check to see if there are any updates, and we'll check and see if there are. This is the main dashboard, which has your system information. And of course, this is running on Proxmox, and then I have my virtual CPUs and my virtual memory and my network, and then my storage pools, which I don't have any yet, but we'll create one. And we'll go ahead and check for updates first, and no updates are available. I'm going to go ahead and spin it just in case, but no, there's nothing here. All right, so next step, we'll go over to the storage. And there's no pool, so we'll create one. And suggested layout. So I'm just going to take all of those disks, all of these guys right here. And then it automatically selects mirror. I could put it in a stripe, but it'll give, if I do that, it's going to give me a warning saying, no, we don't really recommend that. That's kind of dumb. Because if you do lose a drive, of course, yeah, you're SOL, you're out of luck. So we'll put this in a mirror. And I think I'm going to have to put all of those. So we'll do the create. It wants a name for the pool, so we'll give it T-pool for TrueNAS. And then it says, the contents of all the added disks will be erased. Are you sure you want to do this? And yes. And it's formatting them, creating the pool. So at this point, I can do a number of things. There's a menu here where I can look at the pool options. I can export and disconnect the pool. This would be the same as a ZFS export. I can add view VDEVs. I can scrub the pool. I can look at the status. But it's already telling me that. So all I need to do is drop this one down, and I'm going to create a couple of data sets. So the first one we'll create is an NFS. We'll do NFS share. And I don't need anything else. The other one we'll probably need to create is a place to store ISOs. If we're going to put VMs on the machine, we'll need a place to put the ISO files that we're going to use to boot from in order to do the installs. So we'll call this ISO, and yeah, I don't need anything else for that. And I don't know, you can create as many data sets as you want. Of course, now they all share the same data availability because they're just labels and directories that will appear in Linux for the all intensive purposes. However, it will keep the files separate, and it helps to organize things a little bit better. And when you're doing backups and when you're doing snapshots, you can snapshot the areas you care about and leave the ones like ISO, who cares? I mean, you're going to replace those anyway. So at this point, I can go to data protection, and I can set some things up for this. I could set up it already has a scrub task that's going to run every 4 days. I could set up a replication task or an rsync task. And I can also do smart tests. Now that doesn't make any sense for these. These are virtual disks. So yeah, but if it was hardware, you might want to do that. The other thing we want to do is let's go ahead and set up a share for. Let's start with Unix first, and I'll add a path. What am I sharing? Right? What am I sharing out? So. And that's this one right here. And I am going to add a little bit of security. That is that they have to be vetted in my network. And I think that's all I need to do. Yeah. So then the system's not running. It's not actually enabled. As you can see, it stopped. So we'll enable the service. And that'll be my share name that's now available to any other Linux or Mac or Windows. Windows does have the ability to handle NFS shares. However, you'll probably, if you're using Windows, want to set this. It's similar. And then if you have block iSCSI targets, I'm not sharing this with a VM manager. So let's go. Network, it's just information about your interfaces, what they're doing. Apps. So you can, so I need to choose a pool for my apps, and I'll do that. I don't think it lets me tree down. No. So it's probably going to set up its own. So the first time you come in, you'll have to tell it, where your pool is so it knows where to store the applications that you download. This is not all the apps. I mean, you can, in the documentation, there are the TrueChart apps, and you can add those repos, and you just do it by, you go to manage catalogs, and then you add a catalog. And then you'll need to go and find the repo that you'll need. Now, in the TrueChart case, that's going to be on GitHub. And they have the URL in the documentation. And then you'll want to change the preferred trans. Now, when I did this on my production system, it schedules a task to go out and download the contents of the repo. And then it will synchronize and copy the contents of the applications. I don't know if it's actually transferring the applications or just the header information, but it was not successful. I mean, it would fail and it would start up again, and I would add it again and it would fail. And it went back and forth till finally I got something, but I still get error messages when it's doing the sync to bring it in. However, it looks like I have a list of applications that weren't there before, so at least it is transferring some of them, but I suspect that's going to be a beta issue. I will check to see if it's been reported, but I can't imagine it hasn't been. So, yeah, I mean, yeah, so I'm sure they already know about it. Virtualization, that is something that we'll be looking at on the hardware. And let's see, reporting. So by default, we have the CPU here, and we can check, we can look at disk, and we can also look at memory. And I don't know if this gives me any additional configuration. Oh, this just allows me to set whether I want a percentage or, yeah, and how big. Okay. All right. So, yeah, then you can, we went through this list when I was talking about TrueNAS scale yesterday. Well, actually, by the time you see this will be 2 days ago, but yeah, and then we have NFS and partition and all that stuff. So I can look at my NFS partition. It's probably not doing a whole lot right now because I don't have anybody attached to it yet. So yeah. So I'm going to do the rest of the testing over on the production host. And so give me a moment to go over there and I'll be right back. So this is the production system. This is actual hardware. Let me just close this one down because I don't really want to watch that one. But you can see that this one is a Ryzen 3700X. It's got 8 cores, 16 threads, 16 gig of memory now. That's probably going to be a little lightweight to do both virtualization and ZFS, but I don't have a big I don't have a big Z pool here. I've already created one. So if you can also, we can change this up a bit to include the pool and the network card too. So if I want more information, I can get that. So there's my Z pool. And as you add stuff to the system, you'll find there's also other applications that do additional charting, I believe. So let's go look at the storage pool first. These are true drives. These are they're two Samsung SSDs or 870 SATA SSDs, 1 terabyte each. So I have them in a mirror, and so I have a terabyte of storage total. And then I have created an app directory for me. That's the one it created, the IX apps. ISO for where I'm going to put my ISO files, the NFS share, and then it created this one and this one when I actually created virtual machines. So these are volumes, these are ZVols that are used to actually store the virtual image. Now, I also set up. I turned on some smart tests for this. There is an option on the hard drives that you can turn on auto trim. It is off by default, so you just right click the drive when you're in the storage, and it'll give you an option to turn it on. So, yeah, I did that, and I think that's all I have done so far. I haven't set up any rsync. Of course, I don't have much on here yet, but I will. And then I have a DHCP interface that will be changing, but right now it's fine. And then credentials, my local users groups, my directory services, which I don't have any, backup credentials, and any certificates in 2FA if I want to turn that on. Virtualization, let's go in here. So I'm going to start with a couple of things, and I want to show you some problems I've run into. I think these could be issues with the interaction between the distribution and the way this particular system operates in order to create the configurations for those. So let me just start with one. We'll go ahead and add one here. And I'll make this one, this is going to be Linux. And the name for it, this will be Debian. And I'm gonna down here I'll put Debian. This is going to be UEFI boot. Not new, boot. There you go. And then it'll be system clock is local. That's fine. UEFI is fine. I do not want that though. I want Spice. And the bind is okay. So go ahead and select that. I think this is kind of weird. This kind of reminds me of the way IBM used to do configurations on their mainframe, is that, you're sitting at a computer. I mean, don't total that up. Just make the user do it, so that, so if you make a mistake, then it can give you an error message. So on Proxmox, it calculates that automatically from the cores and the threads. It is the same here. These two numbers have to add up to be this one. If these two add up to be greater, then you probably are going to have a problem when you go to launch something. There are a number of modes that you can do. Now, I tried custom before. This time I'm going to try host model. And then down here, this is the other bug that I found, and we're going to hit next. Now notice I did type GIB, right? You all saw that. So I'll go ahead and hit next. I'm going to make a virtual IO. That's probably a little bit light this is a desktop, so we'll make that 32 gig. Network interface is fine. Now the installation media. So I've already copied the ISO files out here, but you can upload them if you want. That works. I tested that. That works. And that you just click this box, and then it allows you to upload. And then it'll ask you where you want to store it. So in this case, I'm just going to take Debian here, and you'll notice it plugs it into where normally the CD-ROM would be. So we'll go ahead and do that. It's going to ask me about a GPU. I don't want to pass one through. I do have one I could pass through, but I'm not going to do it. It says 4,000 gig. Oh, that's my problem. Yeah, that's my problem. So it's going to come back as terabytes because I made a mistake. Yep. So we'll fix that. And of course, that would not start. That will not start. So what I should have typed in was 4 GB. So that was my bad. Nothing wrong with TrueScale. It's the pilot that's at the keyboard. Okay, so at least we caught it, and we'll check it. We got 422, 4 gig, UFE, local, or on DisplayPort 5902, and that's going to be Spice. And then down here we have our controls. So I can clone it. These devices would be the virtual devices like your hard drive, your network, and all that stuff, your CD-ROM. So we'll go ahead and start, and then I'll hit display. And it boots into Grub. And so we'll go ahead and this is the live CD. Okay, so we're up. I'm waiting for the welcome screen. Yeah. No, I don't think so. Even though you won't remember that I took that, but that's okay. That's not a fault of TrueScale. So I guess my first comment is I'm not a big fan of this. The problem is that you can't resize the window. I mean, I can't drag anything to resize it. Now, Proxmox, the way they implement theirs, I can just grab the corner and resize it. Now, it's just going to scale it, but I can also go in it and, of course, do the dynamic rescaling. And that does work here too, but you've got a lot of the real estate taken up already. So anyway, I'm not a big fan of this. They should do that differently, I think, in the future. They don't need to fix it for their release candidate or their release, but I would certainly like to see that more in line with a window that is scalable. Let's see, erase disk. That's just my personal opinion. They probably could care less about what my personal opinion is. All right, and then we'll give it a super secure password. And we'll go ahead and click next. This is all standard setup for, and I'm checking to see, okay, so I got a GPT table. I've got a 300 meg partition. Ooh, I always thought that they recommended that this should be 512. So maybe that's my problem. Well, we'll see if it does create a problem. I'd always remembered that their UEFI partition should be at least 512 on Linux, but so that, I mean, that's Debian. That's a Debian problem. We'll have to see what Ubuntu does. When we'll try that. I did try Clear Linux and it failed miserably, but that isn't too surprising. It's not too surprising. It failed with initially with a KVM not found, and then I changed the CPU type, and then it came up fine. I didn't have it as Q5 and at Q35, so I had to bring it back up, and then it was fine after that, and it came up, but it did not install. It had a failure trying to create the partition, and yeah, it was the boot partition it failed to create. So, but they did create the other one. They did create the Linux partition. So I don't know. I have to turn that one into them and see what the Clear Linux folks think about that. It installs fine on Proxmox, but of course, yeah, I was able to run it on Proxmox fine after bludgeoning it there as well, as you saw during the video I did for it. So Ubuntu is clean install, no problems with Ubuntu at all, but I'm installing server, not trying a workstation yet. So I might try a workstation version. I have to copy it over, but yeah, it'll probably be a future video, but I'll show you a couple of different ways. So it's kind of I kind of look at this as it's beta. You're going to have to trial and error some of the ISOs. They're probably testing with a limited set and they're giving it to us and we're all going to be bringing on, all right, let's see if it'll do Arch. All right, let's see if it'll do, see if it'll do Debian. Let's see if it'll do, let's see if it'll do Tumbleweed, on SUSE. Let's try a bunch of them and just see what kind of failures we get. So, yeah. So again, I'll come back to this at the end. So, okay. So I don't want to restart. I want to shut down. So I'm going to click that off. The reason I want to shut down is I need to, this will not remove the, it doesn't change the boot order on the CD-ROM. So like it does on Proxmox or on a hardware device. So I'm just going to shut this down and close this window up. And we'll go back here. I'm going to have to go to devices. And there's my CD-ROM right there. This is the boot order. And supposedly you can change this to a higher number and it will look at the lower numbers first to do the boot. So it starts with 1,000 first, then it will go to this. So if I change the boot order, that should work. But they recommend just deleting it. That's on their notes. So okay, we'll try it and we'll see what happens. And then I'll take the breadcrumb back and we'll try to start it. Go to the display. Yeah, same problem. So when I did this with, the same problem. It cannot find a bootable image. So either, now according to their information on Debian, the first partition should be automatically marked as bootable, but that may not be translating. So I don't know what's going on there, but clearly that fails. I don't know if Debian works on BIOS, but I guess we could try that and reinstall it. All I would need to do, let me power this off first. Let's add back my CD-ROM. I thought host model might fix it and it didn't. It's right there. So we'll change this over to legacy BIOS. Should be good. And we'll save it. And now let's bring it back up. Okay, a little bit different. Again, I will pause it here for you and then you can rejoin when it's all done. Okay, so same thing, restart. I'll click that off. I don't really want to do this. What I really want to do is to shut this down because I have to blow away the CD-ROM. All right, so we're almost down. Okay. And we're down. So we'll go to devices. Go to my CD-ROM down here at the bottom. Delete it. And we'll go back to the bread trail and let's see what happens. See if we actually can start this. Turn on the display. Do we get the same thing? No, it does work. So that's a problem with UEFI because Debian is starting up on Grub just fine and legacy BIOS. So I guess that's a workaround. I need that. Okay. Well, okay, that's interesting. Well, the mouse position is a bit off too. But I also noticed the window's now ducked below. Yeah, there's software updates. But okay, that answered my question at least. Mess a whole lot with that. We'll just go ahead and hit power off. Okay, so now Ubuntu, this is UEFI, and it works fine. I also did the same thing. I deleted the CD-ROM, and I will just bring it up as proof that it is not. I don't think this is. I think it's probably an interaction problem between the distros. I don't think that this is per se a problem with TrueNAS scale. But there is something that Debian is doing that Ubuntu is not, that is maybe messing up stuff. However, this is a server environment, so it is a little different. I mean, I am not trying to bring up, but I wouldn't think the boot would matter all that much. Yeah. Let's see, can I? No, there's no way to, yeah, there's no way to scale it. So I'm not a big fan of that. All right, we'll go ahead and shut that down. I am done with this. The other thing I wanted to look at was just to look at the what is entailed for to install apps. Now I can show you my error messages that I was getting here. So there's there's all the apps that I installed. So the catalogs that I have official and then TrueChart. I think there's one other that I can get, but I think for right now this is fine. But in my task history, you can see that all of these have failed. And I probably can get it to fail again. And it started a new task, a background job. And you can check the status of those here. Okay. So did it crap out? Yes, it did. Stopped. So yeah, the same thing here, and then our system settings. And we have our update again, general settings, which basically is you can add a license, you can change your GUI settings and all that. But one of the things you can do is you can go to the shell. And that gives you a full. So as you probably noticed, the pool is mounted underneath the M&T directory or mount directory. And there's my Z pool. Let's see, can I do a Z pool commit? Yes. ZFS. Yeah, and the pool status. Yeah. Okay. Now set the font size. Does that looks like that's the maximum already. Oh, this doesn't look like it does anything. Oh, yeah, it does. Okay. All right. Now that's nice. So they should add that to the anyway. Anyway, okay. That's nice. At least you'll be able to read it without having to go blind. I think that's all I had. I mean, as you can tell, I do have a couple of concerns, but it is beta software, and I'm going to reserve those concerns for when they officially release. I just hope that that a lot of us testers, I mean, a lot of us get out there and test this with them and give them feedback as to, okay, so these are the distros I know will work in the virtual machines, and these are the ones that I know won't. That kind of information would be helpful for them to track down whatever the bug or issue is that's going on with it. But that's all I had for today. I probably will come back and do some benchmarking on this. I'm going to benchmark it against my existing systems, which are running on Linux. They are native. They run their own ZFS installations with NFS on top of it. And so, yeah, we'll do that. I also have Gluster pools. I'm tempted, but I don't really want to do that. I noticed that the Gluster, so to give you an answer, the Gluster server is disabled. It's not on. I know that they're still working on that. I don't know if it's planned for this release or some future release, but clearly it is not ready, apparently. So, I mean, if the commands are there, the service is installed, it's just disabled. So I don't know what kind of issues I would get into if I brought it up. So I think what I'll do is I'll kind of wait, let them mature the product a little bit, see where things land for the release candidate next month. Maybe go check it again. And if it's still disabled, then I'll wait until it's officially released. And I'll look at it again. And this time I'll probably turn Gluster on because Gluster attaches as a fuse file system to the OS. Now, the version I think they're running is 9.3 or 9.2, which is current. You know, that's fairly current. I'm running 9.3 on mine, so on my ARM servers. But yeah, I mean, we'll take a look at all that and see how well that goes. I know I can pull my Gluster cluster into this and mount it up underneath the mount directory and probably fool it into thinking that it's a ZFS pool, but of course it is not. Yeah, I run XFS on my file system. I don't have enough drives on each of the ARM machines to be able to run ZFS. So anyway, that's the excuse anyway. I'm sticking to it. Also, there's really not a lot of memory on those devices either. There's only 4 gig of memory. Anyway, hope to see you all again real soon. Hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, please like and subscribe. Hope to see you all again real soon, and bye for now.